Willie Q, continuing from the bottom of page 43. Now, maybe some kids have time to stay after school and break math records, but my son doesn't. I say this in a respectful tone voice, though. I tell Mr. Collins that if it wasn't for our barbecue place, me and my son wouldn't have a roof over our heads or food in our mouths. I can't run the place alone, I explain, not with how much business we get. I need my son here every day, helping me after school. I expect that you can understand that. Mr. Collins tries to make me change my mind. He wants me to let Marcel stay for the club once or twice a week. Maybe you have some days that you're slower than others, he tries to argue. Marcel is a big part of the team, and we'd hate to lose him. I tell the teacher that I'm a Vietnam vet, and being a soldier taught me that responsibility always comes first. Marcel's responsibility is to work at the barbecue. When you're a soldier, you learn to do what you have to, not what you want to do. And that's the way I'm trying to raise my son, I say. Now, I glance over the customer who's getting impatient. What time is school dismissed every day, Mr. Collins? After he answers 3:25, I thank him for speaking to me, and I tell him to be sure that Marcel leaves school exactly that time each afternoon. I'll be waiting right here for him. I finish. Marcel. I got slow burn sauce cooking inside me, the kind of sauce that gets hotter after you swallow it, hotter and hotter, like flames licking up from the inside of a house. We don't aim to please nobody at Willie's Barbecue, ma'am. We got the worst food in the whole state of Ohio, maybe the entire world. No hot sauce, no mild sauce, nothing. You have a terrible day too, ma'am, and don't you ever come back. That's what I'd like to say. Instead, I smack some ribs over the grill and slap some sauce on them. Won't look at Willie Q. Won't talk to him either. Let him disappear in a puff of smoke. Wouldn't care. Ain't spending the rest of my life working at Willie Q's barbecue, saying sweet things to customers who don't deserve sweet, smiling like I care about selling rib bones and chicken wings and pig meat. Ain't joining the army either, like my daddy thinks. Won't salute nobody, least all him. I'm going to be a comedian or a Hollywood actor. Here comes Marcel Williams, the movie star. Can't you hear them saying that? Big black stretch limo, hot girls on each arm. Ain't he something, they'll say. Willie Q doesn't want me staying for the math group anymore. He says I gotta be at work every day by 3:30. Mr. Collins bent the truth about what time school lets out, just to get my daddy to believe that. But at least you can stay with us for 20 minutes or so after school, Mr. Collins said, trying to make me feel good. 20 minutes. The slow burn sauce starts bubbling inside of me again. I can feel the heat rising. Maybe I'll work harder in those 20 minutes, Willie Q, than in all the hours I'm working at sweating for you. Willie Q hollers at me. We got a customer, Marcel. Over at the window. You watching out or not? I open the order window real slowly and give my best I don't really care what you want to order smile. Good afternoon, ma'am, I say in my head. You better order real fast because Marcel Williams ain't going to be here too long, no matter what his daddy thinks. He's going to leave this place and be a star. We've got blast off to outer space hot, melt the roof of your mouth hot, tar in the summertime hot. Charisse. Mr. Collins' club is falling apart and right in front of his eyes, and he acts like everything's fine. Hey, Mr. Collins, I want to wave my arms and say, this club is getting smaller and smaller, or haven't you noticed? Like, pretty soon it's just going to be me, Rondell, and you if you don't do something about it. You should try bringing snacks, I tell him one afternoon when nobody else shows up except me and Rondell. It's too long to wait from lunch until we get home, and school lunch is usually some kind of mystery meat, so half the time we don't eat it anyway. That's why most clubs have snacks. After that, Mr. Collins starts to bring in bags of chips and popcorn. Sometimes his wife sends in something sweet, like homemade chocolate chip cookies or fudge brownies, just like my mom probably would have made for me every day after school if she was around. I don't think non-parent number 5, had made cookies in her entire life, so I'm always trying to slip an extra one or two out of my purse to eat later. You know, pretend my mom or Graham made it for me. Even though foster non-parent number 5 is causing me more and more problems, I don't talk about them with anybody. Like I don't have to share everything that is messed up in my life. I just keep on acting like I'm smiling, friendly old self. At least kids start showing up for the first half of the club now, before the snacks run out. We stand around Mr. Collins' desk, eating our handfuls of pretzels or potato chips, and drinking the cans of pop that Mr. Collins lets us sneak from the pop machine in the teacher's lounge, if we've got quarters, or he gives out loans if you don't. We can usually count on Marcel and James, and sometimes Terrell and Deandra being there. Ashley doesn't come anymore now that she finally woke up and got herself a new boyfriend. Me and Rontel are always there, of course. Mr. Collins calls us the dynamic duo. I don't like the name much, but I think it's trying too hard if you ask me, to act like a more friendly teacher to us, and so I let it go. Mr. Collins says he still remembers how quiet everybody was in the first couple of days we worked together. Me and Rondell were hunched over our desks trying to get in pieces to fold on the lines and stay glued, which was impossible. About halfway through the second day, I remember looking over at Rondell, and she had globs of glue all over her desk, and one of her pieces had just come unstuck again, and the two of us almost fell over. We were laughing so hard. Like it was the funniest thing you could see, an orange piece she'd been holding for 20 minutes suddenly come flying apart. That's when we knew we'd get along okay. We're faster now, of course, but we're still not making much progress on building the giant pyramid. Like, no progress. If we were Egyptians, we would have been fired, girl. That's what I tell Rondell. In my opinion, most of it's Marcel's fault because he's the president of the club and he hasn't been sticking to his job. He eats the snacks and leaves halfway through the club. What kind of president is that? So I decide it's time to tell Marcel that even though I like him a lot, not like as in like as in he's all right to be around, we need somebody new for president. If people are going to come to the club and eat snacks, they have to do the work too, I say. And if the president can't stay for the whole time and help build, then somebody else should take over, or we're never going to break the world record. It's already the beginning of November. I tell Marcel that I'm willing to volunteer to fill in for him. But I think everybody just about choked on their pretzels when James jumped in our conversation and said he wanted to be president instead. We were standing around Mr. Collins' desk, and he came strolling over to us with a sly, sneaky grin and has announced, I'm ready. I'm already vice pres, right? So I'm next in line to be pres before any of you except Terrell, who's not here. So that means I should be the new pres, doesn't it? We tried to argue with James that he hadn't done any work, so how could he possibly take over everything? But he said we were all wrong about him. I got more talent than any of you, he said, way more talent. I couldn't believe it when Mr. Collins took his side and agreed to give James a chance. See, Mr. Collins doesn't have a clue about kids. That's his problem as a teacher. Other teachers would have seen right through James. They would have known he was trying to pick a fight with Marcel like he picks a fight with everybody. James is just a plain mean and I don't know why Mr. Collins couldn't see that. He just let him butt in and take over. Girl, this whole club is going to fall apart now, I say to Rondell as we walk down the hall after school. You mark my words, he'll ruin the whole thing. Why would Mr. Collins do something like that? Rondell is silent. I figured she doesn't want to tell me that it was really my fault for opening my mouth about us needing a new president. See, she's smart and I'm not. She knows when to keep her mouth shut and I don't. Why can't I ever learn that? I should have let things go the way they were. See, that was always my mistake. I always tried to fix things, like trying to make my foster non-parents be nicer people or trying to act better so they would like me more. One time I had a foster non-parent who used to lock up every room in her house at night because she was afraid the foster kids stealing from her. So I told her it would save her a lot of trouble if she just waited to see if I was honest first instead of wasting her time locking everything up. Just suggesting that idea got me in trouble with her. And if I had left things the way they were years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been living with my foster non-parents in the first place. But maybe my Graham would still be alive. In fact, you could probably say that if I hadn't been born when I was, things could have been different. Maybe my mom wouldn't have gotten into that car to get away from her screaming, throwing up baby, me. As Rondell pushes the front door of the school, we step inside. The first snow of the year is falling. Actually, it isn't really snow, but more like round spitballs zinging out of the freezing gray sky. Look at that, Charisse, Rondell says, squinting up at the sky. But I'm so mad at myself, I just duck out into the snow without saying goodbye to Rondell, or even stopping to pull on the sweatshirt I've got in my backpack. I head down the street toward the library, letting the spitball snow sting my arms.